Hi everyone, welcome again to another SysAid monthly webinar. Today we want to speak about smart ways of dispatching your service records. I'm sure you all have processes today in place of how to do that. We want to give you some smart ways of how to improve these processes and probably save you a lot of time doing that. You know, when we speak in our certification classes, when we teach them, we have a saying, let SysAid work for you. Now, this is not just a slogan that we use in order to sell SysAid. SysAid can actually do operations for you, day-to-day operations that you would usually assign to your employees. So SysAid can be just like you hired another employee in your system. In order to do that, we've invited Gil Blinov. How are you?
I'm fine, Michael. Thank you for having me here.
Well, we're happy to have you here. Gil is a professional services engineer in our professional services department, and he's going to give us some of his on-site experience today. So, before we start, let's take a look at the agenda. So, what are we going to speak about today? First thing we're going to see is why should we research our service desk? Okay, we're going to try and answer that question. We're going to show you some efficient ways of manually dispatching your service records. Then we're going to speak about how to set up some smart routing rules. I'm sure some of you or most of you are using routing rules today. We want to show you smart ways of doing that. And lastly, we're going to show you a feature called Email Business Rules that will help you automatically dispatch your service records by parsing words in the messages that you get. We'll see how that works. If you have questions, you can ask them on chat. Just click the running banner at the bottom of the screen and you can speak to one of our representatives. You can also ask questions on Twitter on @SysAidAcademy #webinar. So let's start speaking about processes and how to improve them. Now, most of us have legacy processes in our organization that we don't even remember why we started doing them because our predecessor did it. It's been done like this for years. If we stop for a second and think, okay, maybe we can just write these processes off, we can save a lot of time, right?
Yes, that's right, Michael. Now, the thing is, when you start optimizing processes, especially the life cycle of a ticket, there's a tendency to overlook the first step, which is the dispatching. So we'll try and focus a little bit on that. What you'll need to do, grab a piece of paper, start writing down how a ticket goes through your system since it's been submitted by the user and until it arrived to the group that will take care of it, basically. Now, take a good hard look at that process. Look for any place which is done almost automatically by somebody. For example, any ticket that has the word error will go to this group. Once you've got the new process written down, first of all, it will make the whole ticket be much more efficient because you saved a lot of time at the beginning. And second of all, right now you've got a process which is ready to be implemented in SysAid.
Great. So what Gil just mentioned, actually, we have to say that it takes time. You need to make time and in order to make that list, but it's going to save you a lot of time down the road as you go on. So let's take a quick look at an example of what we just talked about.
Let's talk a little bit about how you research the process. You're going to need a few things. You're going to need time, like Michael said. You're going to need a pen and 2 sheets of paper. Then you need to write down what you are doing today. All the steps of the life cycle of the ticket, write them down. Then write down how would you like things to be done. You need to be able to ask yourself hard question. Why? Do I need this? You'll need to be brave because you're changing processes and you'll need creativity. So here we have an example of a process. This is the initial state. What do we have today? So a ticket comes into the service desk and a person there, a dispatcher, chooses whether to forward it to IT or to purchasing. In IT, they go more in depth and see who will take care of it, the networks or the application. Now, here we have 2 places where the ticket stops on his way to the person who will handle it. We can optimize it. The dispatching is mostly done by a combination of categories. So we can teach that, we can write it down, and the person in the service desk will be able to choose whether it will go to networks or to applications. So the new optimized solution, a ticket arrives to the service desk, it will go to either networks, application, or purchasing. If the person at the service desk does not know which one of these two to choose from, he will forward it to IT, and they will choose the correct people.
Okay, so that was a great example. We can actually start talking about dispatching your service records manually, but we'll see how you can do it in a smart way. Okay, so let's start.
When preparing for this webinar, we took into consideration that every business runs itself differently, and we tried to gather the best examples we have so that hopefully you'll find one which works in your organization. So let's see now how we dispatch manually, but in an efficient way. Okay, so right now we're viewing a list view of the incidents. Let's say we have a person who's doing dispatching manually. What a lot of people do, they go into a ticket, they review it, and then they assign it to a person. Now, even in this small example, we have quite a few tickets which will go to Angelina Jolie. We can do it more efficiently. Choose all the tickets which you would like to assign to a certain person. Go to the dynamic actions and choose this person. Click Set, and you're done. Now, in this example, we don't have a lot of tickets. What happens if your list goes, a few pages? So let's minimize it. First of all, I want to see only the not assigned tickets, because I'm dispatching. I don't care about the other ones. And then we can minimize the list even more by choosing the correct category. Choose all tickets, and then assign them to the correct person. So, as you can see, it's much faster, it's much more efficient, and we don't need to be afraid that a person will make a mistake and will skip one of the tickets.
Well, great. These are some great tips, but here's my question. If we know all these things in advance, wouldn't it be even more efficient to set up a routing rule?
You're absolutely right, Michael. And that brings us back to what we talked about in the beginning, about automation. So, I have a few cool examples to show you. If you have been using SysAid for some time, you probably know about routing rules. What I want to show you here is smart and efficient ways of using these rules. So let's see. As you've seen, we have some pretty basic rules for our routing. Let's start with them. I'm going into the routing rules, and the first thing I want you to do when you go into your routing rules, even if you have some of them configured, create one rule that will take all categories, all companies, all groups, and it will route it to a certain group. For now, we'll choose operations. Then, if you miss one of the routing rules, or if you add more categories, you still know that it will be routed to one of the groups. Usually, use your help desk for it. Now, we have a few ways of routing tickets. The first is functional. What do we mean by that? Each ticket goes to the person who will take care of it. So, in our previous example, we used ERP that went to Brad Pitt. Now, first of all, I will choose all subcategories in this category, and then I'll route it. Now, there is an inclination of using the administrator. However, we find it best of routing to an admin group. Even if you have only one person in a group, it's still beneficial to do it this way, because you never know, your organization might grow and you'll have two people, or the person will change. This way you know that the routing rule will always do its job and you will not have to worry about that. So in our example, Brad Pitt is one of the enterprise admins, so we'll add him. Of course, you can continue and choose all the other categories. What is the second option? The second option is having a tiered system for all the tickets. So, if we have a tiered system for all of the tickets, the routing rule will say only one thing. All rules, all categories, all companies, at first will go to tier 1. Basically, that's all you need. The final way to route tickets is geographical or organizational. What do I mean by that? We can have all tickets from a certain company, for example, company alpha, go to the appropriate admin group, which in this case will be PaperMax CA. We can also do that by user group. If you know that a certain user group always opens tickets to a certain admin group, you can do that as well. Choose operations and have operations take care of all of their tickets. Now, I want to show you another small thing. What happens if your operating hours are a bit different than most? You're working, for example, 9 to 5, and those are your usual operating hours. But you have a small team that is always on call for critical issues or for any issue that will be created as such by the user. How do we do that? We will need to customize a little bit, but it will pay off. So first of all, I want to create some way for a user to say to us whether the ticket has been created for out of hours or just for the regular operating hours. How do we do that? We'll go to Fields Customization, Service Record, and we'll add a new custom column. We'll call it 24. We will not call it 24. We will call it after hours flag. It will be of the type list and the database name after hours. Let's go to list and customize it a bit more. So, we choose the field that we just created, and we'll create two values for it. Yes and no. Once that's been done, we'll go to the end user portal, to the incident submission form, and we'll add this field. So now, when a user opens a ticket, he will need to choose whether this ticket has an after hours flag or not. What will this mean? If a user will choose after hours flag yes, then this ticket will be active 24/7. All of your escalation rules, all of your regular timers, they'll continue to work. How do we achieve that? Well, we'll need to create another service level agreement, which I already did. I called it after hours. You don't need much more than that. Then we'll just change the operating times for this agreement. If I'll go in, you'll see that this agreement always works. I'll add Saturday and Sunday and save it. As long as we have the same start time and end time, this will work for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of the year. So, how do we make the ticket go from the default operating times, which in this case are 7 to 12, into the more advanced, the 24/7 ones? We'll have to use an escalation rule for that. I'm creating a new rule, and I'll name it after hours, which will take all of the tickets from the default SLA it will take all the active tickets, because we always want to capture them, whether they're new or open, and we'll tell it exactly what we want. And what we want is that after hours flag we talked about, we want it to be equal yes. We'll run this escalation rule 1 minute after the creation of the ticket. And what it will do, it will notify the end user, because we do want him to know that from now on the ticket will be taken care of 24/7, and assign admin group. In here we'll need to do two things. First of all, we'll have two statements, one of which will change the agreement to after hours, and the second one will change the admin group to the admin group that has all of the admins that work 24/7. Again, an advantage, it will always work no matter which of the admins in this group is actually at your service desk. Another way of doing the same thing, we can create a rule that will say that all active tickets which have the priority highest will go to the same place. We change the agreement, and from now on they work 24/7. I'll choose this as a request time again and notify the appropriate people.
Well, I have to tell you, I really like this 24/7 trick, tip, call it what you will. So now what we want to see, we're going to take things actually to the next level. We're going to show you a feature in SysAid called Email Business Rules. Now, we've seen this feature briefly when we did our Christmas webinar. And now we want to go a little in depth into it and show you how to actually get value from it. So let's start.
Okay, so what we're going to see here is how simple it is to create an email rule that will take care of a lot of work that's being done by your team. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about email rules. You'll find them under the Customized Service Desk. You'll have them here. And what email rules are? Basically, they're just a rule that will process all of the incoming emails and search for keywords in them. So let's call this rule operations. Let's say that we have a fictional organization in which there is a software that gives out error messages. The users will always copy and paste that error message inside the email. The message will always be error number and then 5 numbers after that. Let's say that all the error messages which start with 32 will go to operations. So how do we do that? First of all, we'll need to choose an incoming email. We can use only one, or we can use both, which means all incoming emails to SysAid will be processed, and then we go into text to search for. We'll search for this text both in the subject and the body. We can choose either or, and we'll search for the words error number 32. Now it doesn't matter if it will be 32001 or 32654. Because we added contains, it will catch all of these errors. We'll create a filter, and now we can actually choose who we assign the ticket to. In our example, it will go to operations. We can choose the status, we can choose the category as well. So for now, we'll choose ERP. Also, the urgency and the impact. So there you have it. If you know that you have a certain error message, let's say error message 32564, that it's critical, assign it the highest priority. If you know you have a certain type of error messages which are low priority, you can choose that as well. That way you'll save a lot of time for the person who's looking at the queue to search for incidents that he will dispatch to operations.
Thank you very much, Gil, for being here today.
It's been a pleasure.
Well, it's the first time. I'm sure there are going to be more. So we're ready to summarize. I would like to thank you all for being with us today. We hope you take everything that we showed you today and implement it in your systems, and we hope it's going to save you some time. We'll be here next month, and again, if you still want to ask us questions, you can click the chat link in the bottom of the screen. You can also contact us on Twitter @SysAid Academy #webinar, and we'll see you next month. Bye.